Uh, I think she again get network issue. Nisha ma'am, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, so ways which we have done in our previous episodes so far. So what if there were a way to infuse more energy into a classroom? What if there was a pedagogical, we can vehicle that could serve as an impression and critical thinking? We talked about all this, but what about if a vehicle to experience all this in our classrooms? So there were a way to facilitate. Okay, so all these things,
Sorry.
standards and
Nisha ma'am, sorry. In fact, from the very start, you are not audible.
am I audible now?
Yes. You are audible now.
Okay, so let me start again. So I was telling you, I was just taking all the audio which we have just finished in our 5 episodes so far. So we techniques which we use, STEM learning.
I think we should go with another question. Later on, when ma'am will be comfortable, we will be taking a question. Is that fine? Ranjana ma'am, Anuva ma'am. Anuva ma'am, am I audible to you?
Evening, everyone.
Anuva ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yeah. Now you are audible. In fact, Nisha ma'am is getting some network issue, so we will be taking another question, right? Is that fine? Anuva
Yeah, please go ahead. I will just change my location.
Okay, fine.
So
I am
with the questions. I will just change my location and then.
Sushilji, I'm also in my car. I'll take 5 minutes to settle down, just parking the car and getting down. That's why the video is off and I was putting my mic on off constantly.
No problem.
So, but I'm able to hear you. I'm with the meeting.
Okay, no problem. We are going with third question with Ranjana ma'am. Ma'am, what are the types of project-based learning? Please explain on that part.
One second. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, properly. Perfect.
Okay. So I think directly we have come on the types of projects of project-based learning without understanding that what is project-based learning. In fact,
it's good if you explain from the question number 1, because Nisha ma'am is she is not in the right mood to explain the things, so she will be getting the problem all the time. So it's good if you explain the things first.
Because if I will directly come to the types of learning, project-based learning, I think audience will not understand exactly that what are we talking about.
Correct, very true. So please go with question number 1. What is project-based learning and how is it an effective approach for teaching?
See, I'll just try to give the brief that project-based learning is little different than the projects we generally do in the classrooms. Okay. It is a kind of teaching learning strategy. It is an approach. It is an instructional approach which is designed to give students the opportunity to develop knowledge and skills through some projects. And these projects are not one-day affair. in 1 period or in 2 periods, they can complete it. These are long-term projects. Maybe it can extend for 1 month, 2 months, depending upon the type of project which is done by the teacher, by the class. So this is a kind of learning beyond classroom. It is beyond textbook. It is, of course, related to the curriculum, the concepts, academic concepts which children learn, but they learn through a different strategy. This is called project-based learning. And as I said, it is a learning beyond classroom, outside classroom also. Most of the time it is collaborative. Most of the time it is student-led. Most of the time it is related to the real world problem solving also. Because when we talk about project, it is related to only the classroom learning within the classroom. But when we say project-based learning, of course, children are learning the concepts of chemistry, of maths, of English, of all other subjects and skills along with it, but using a different approach. So this is the basic meaning of project-based learning. I hope I could give a little idea about it. And it can be, when we use it, when we use project-based learning through STEAM, that is using technology or maths or art and science, then it becomes a STEAM, project-based learning through STEAM projects. So whenever science, technology, mathematics are used for solving the problems which are taken in the project, then we are learning all these subjects along with solving the problem. So that is what is called project-based learning. Now, if I come to the types of projects based learning, in fact, there are not different types. I can say there are no specific types of PBL, but yes, based on the execution and the type of project and the learning outcomes and the other approaches which are integrated within it, we can categorize PBL mainly in 3 types. First is the place-based learning. This approach embeds the local community issues or other aspects of the community, the locality where the school or children are situated, like culture, heritage, language, opportunities, etc., to learn academic concepts of curriculum. So one thing we must be clear, that project-based learning is nothing parallel going with the teaching of curriculum. It is embedded in the teaching of curriculum, and this is how project-based learning should go. So as I was talking about place-based learning, this is the first type. It is done through community projects within the locality, within the community. The social issues like economic development of a particular demography in the area, or learning about history, socio-economic structure and culture of a particular place. For example, students can study the architecture of historical monuments situated in a particular space, and then using technology and STEAM, they can design their own model of that monument. Suppose they are learning about forts of Maharashtra, and then we can ask them to create or design their own model of fort using some Scratch or some other technological programs, softwares. So this is how they can learn through project-based learning. And this is the type, as I said, place-based learning. Another type is challenge-based learning. This is another version of problem-based learning. In fact, this is the type of learning which is mostly driven by identification and solving of an authentic challenge or real-world problem. Again, children can use STEAM-based project by solving any kind of problem or issue. Here I would like to give an example. A girl, I saw this video somewhere and I really liked it. A girl from Tamil Nadu, she observed that ironing vendors, people those who iron the clothes, they use heavy metal iron and heat it up using charcoal. And then she researched about the use of charcoal, which is a polluting fuel, in fact, obtained from wood. She researched and she tried to find more about it. And she came to know that charcoal causes air pollution, deforestation, and even climate change. So because of traditional burning of wood, which generates greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, etc., it causes also respiratory diseases, which is very harmful even for the people, those who are using it. So she thought of using science and technology. She came up with an idea of making an ironing cart, which runs on solar power and a battery which can heat up the iron box for at least 6 hours. So very beautifully she created and designed this cart using the concepts of science. So this is another example, which is challenge-based kind of learning. And the third type of PBL is activity-based learning, or the experiential learning, I can say, wherein the more focus is on learning by doing. Students learn by constructing the knowledge through various activities, manipulatives or experiments. When they learn using this, when they complete their project using more of activity-based, then it is called activity-based project type. For example, again, you may ask children to design and prototype shoes with minimum friction. This project we did in the school, that's why I'm giving this example. When they were learning in physics, friction concept. So this was asked to them to design a prototype of shoes with the minimum friction. So they learned the concept of friction. They designed, it was activity based because they were supposed to first design and then make the prototype also. So these are some types of project-based learning, but yes, there are many other types also, as I said, depending upon the execution and the type of approach which we are using. Like inquiry-based, it can be game-based as well. So these are some of the types.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a beautiful explanation and how you are implementing actually in your school, and you are motivating, hopefully you are motivating and encouraging them for all these things. It's really great. Thank you so much. Next question for Anuba, ma'am. Ma'am, what are the elements, or we can say essentials for PBL approach?
Thank you, Sushilji. And Ranjana ma'am has set up a very beautiful tone to the project-based learning concept. Indeed, project means it has to be long-term and it has to have an implication. If I sum up the essential elements of project-based learning, the very first premise is that there should be a challenging question that should pose both interest and inquiry into the children. And that inquiry has to be sustained long-term. So when we are planning a project-based learning for students, we have to give them problems from the real life, which they are able to identify with. And they should be driven into constantly working on that, different questions related to the concept. I believe that introducing authentic elements to the project-based learning should be one of the most essential elements of PBL method. We get so much on the internet that we actually do not need to research. We can just type something on Google and the information is going to shower down on us. So one essential element is how authentic is your information. If you have done some research, where did you find the data from? What was the novelty in your finding? How do you correlate it to your question? Do you find any divergence in that or not? So all these things, if you bring in, the students will be able to be more realistic rather than simply copying, pasting the things. There should be areas where we are asking students' own opinion to it. So if we make it open-ended and not defining the solution, giving multiple options to the problem, that is where the students will be able to put in their own views to it. It should also include reflection on what has been done in the past. Because we identify so many problems around us. If I talk of Delhi, if I talk of India, we are talking of problem of water crisis. We are facing the rising temperatures. And I did it practically in my assembly. We had students right from class 1 to class 10th, all of them present there. And I asked them that, aren't you finding this April a little more hotter than what we used to have earlier? What do you think should be the reason for this? Just an open-ended question to all the children. And I got mostly the answers that are expectedly found everywhere. Ma'am, global warming, ma'am, carbon dioxide, use of vehicles, we can switch off the electricity. So when you give them options, do you think the war is contributing something to it? Do you think we have used more computers in past 2 years? Has it contributed something to it? So if we can add such elements wherein the student get to think and will not find it on the internet, even if those are vague, that will put in an element of students' own thought process pouring in, and they will be able to come up with answers. They will be able to reflect on what is being said in the problem statement. How much is it giving them the provision to touch base upon the concepts done in the class in the relevant subject? And is it bringing in some element of revision of the subject content that they have done? So when we took up this topic, we have been doing it for past 2 years when we are talking of sustainable development goals around the environment. We are working on air and water as 2 core issues specifically pertaining to Delhi. So we have been giving this on and off again. We see what is happening in the surroundings, what has come up in the news, and we add one more question to their project. And the children have been taking their understanding of air and water crisis in Delhi over the period of past 2 years. I intend to take it for 5 years. It is not just restricted to a very small period. So some of the students who are doing really better, they are also compiling a paper on it. So now when they are talking about it, what did you study in chapter 5 of your textbook? Is that element correlating to your answer that you are giving? So I'm revising the chapter also. And the child knows that when we are sitting and discussing on the project, we will be touching so many things and I should be prepared with it. So I don't need to touch on the chapter, go back and take a revision test. It comes out in simple discussions when we are sitting in the meeting room, and we have divided the questions and we have divided the students into different groups. So I have a mixed group of children from different classes. And then these children come forward and then they talk in the assembly and they take opinion from different students also. So their project in these 2 areas is running very beautifully. Now, another aspect which is very important to project-based learning is, what is the utility factor? What solution are you coming up with? And where are we taking it forward? So I invited a scientist to our school, and he is known for his frugal innovations. He is from IISER Mohali, Dr. Ghosh, Dr. Samrat Ghosh, and many innovations are there to his credit. So in one of his addresses, he demonstrated an experiment to the students wherein he used hydrogen and he created a mid-air explosion. Possibly you'll find this video on the YouTube also. And then he talked about the concept of when we are using hydrogen as an explosion, it's an explosive which is no pollution explosive. So immediately my children said, ma'am, we can have it as a substitute to crackers in Diwali. This is one of the answers to air pollution. And when we talked about hydrogen, a student from senior class was able to correlate it to the concept studied in chemistry. And they said that if we are using this explosion process, this is adding water to the atmospheric air. So it is increasing the moisture content in the air, which is also very good for these time period, which are drier time periods for Delhi atmosphere. So just sharing few anecdotes from the practices that have been done in the school and taking it further on to the project, the concept of project-based learning. As educators, we have to be very innovative with our questions and the sub-questions and the subsets of students that we create. And we should let them explore beyond the boundaries, keeping in mind our objectives. The basic question, the inquiry that we are creating, the students' own authentic information coming in, the correlation with the subject matter that they are studying, and what use are you bringing it to the society. So from that experiment, now my team is trying to build in, can we create crackers which are eco-friendly? So can we have these hydrogen balloons as the model of Diwali celebration? Possibly, if it is successful towards Diwali, I'll be sharing the social product of this project-based learning method.
Great, ma'am. In past sessions, which we started with STEM, on regular basis, we had observed how you are putting the efforts with the students, and it's a consistent efforts. All the time we have observed new kind of innovation, new kind of inputs you are making with the students. Such a nice effort.
Yes, thank you.
Great, ma'am. Nisha ma'am, hopefully we are audible to you now.
I think so.
Next
I
question
just
is,
changed my location. So I think I can connect now.
next question is for you. In our schools, it is a common practice of
Yeah.
teachers to assign projects to students. Then how does PBL differ from doing a project? At the start, Ranjana ma'am has given some of the examples related to this, but yes, you also explain on this one.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sushilji. And Anubha ma'am, you have explained it very well, what Ranjita ma'am told about project-based learning, and you have just, explained it beautifully. I must congratulate you on this, that you're doing such a wonderful projects in your school already. So let's, it's basically project versus project-based learning, which we are talking about right now. So I think teachers have been assigning projects to students for years. I think when we were even students, we used to make those solar cookers, which we used to cook the food. And in a shoe box only, I just remember that I made this solar cooker in a shoe box when I was a student. So surely they for years, from decades, teachers are assigning these projects to students, but project-based learning is something completely different. So as already two of the panelists have explained, so one of the examples which I found in the PBL projects, PBL, there is a website, and there is an organization which is dedicated to project-based learning, who are the founders of project-based learning. So they have done tremendous research on project-based learning, and they give you gold standard projects also. So there is a rating for the projects, that what are the gold standard projects, and what projects we need to include in STEM projects, that they are effective for the deeper learning, not surface learning. And as Ranjita ma'am told about challenge-based learning, so they give us the idea what are the problems which are challenging. There are many problems, but we need to identify as a teacher or a student that what problems we need to carry forward to research with. So, I was talking about the PBL organization. So they give very, subtle example, and I can say metamorphic example, that project is the desert and project-based learning is the main course. So when we visit, traditional classrooms, now everybody is experiencing with the new education policy, even it is every day, it is a refining project. Everybody is refining with their teaching practices or leadership skills. So, but if we can visit in some of the schools, the traditional classroom, if we visit them, you will probably find that students have done desert projects in at least one unit during the school year. Shoebox, ma'am just told us, from shoebox diagrams to hand-built models to poster presentations. Students are often tasked with creating something related to the topic of the unit. Like in our days, we used to make in mathematics formula charts. Okay, I will write all the formulas on the chart, then it will be pasted on the wall of the classroom. So that is a project. which a teacher has assigned to me, and I just worked on it, and maybe I cram it. Or in our days, teacher used to say, when you will come to the classroom and you will have a visibility with those walls, you will automatically grasp something, or but that is, what is that? That is a surface learning. We are doing a rote learning. That is not a deeper learning, or we are making any change, as Nuva ma'am told us the elements about PBL. We are not making change in the word, or we are providing any solution to the real life problems. So it is usually done at the end of the unit, just to check what students have learned. And after a main course of content, it is delivered by traditional lessons, lectures, worksheets, or readings. So I can say a desert project offers a fun or creative challenge for the students. So it seems like a special treat, making charts, presentations. So what is missing in those projects? But with PBL, the project is the main course. It provides the framework. It's a kind of framework that for students for learning in a unit. It is learning. It is not about learning of a unit. It is about learning in a unit. So the in the the project itself in PBL, the project in itself is used to teach rigorous academic contents. We talked about authenticity. So authentic tasks come in, authentic tasks which has direct connection with the real world it comes to. So uh, one of the examples which is just striking my mind, like students needed to investigate how waste in local waterways contributes to the problem of plastic in the ocean. So they proposed a solution to this problem, and present them to the city officials, we can say, to the mayor, or whatever local MC. So by exploring the question over a couple of weeks or longer, students become immersed in it, and they're pursuing answers from various angles. So they are living the problem at that moment. They are not just listening to it, or okay, it is not my problem, people will solve it. They are immersing into that problem. So this is the difference between project and a project based learning. And one of the things which ma'am told us about the reflection, that is the important element which I can say, because reflection is important, not even for the students, for the teachers even, that reflecting on what is the value of this project we have made, why this project was important to us, what wrong things we have done, how we can improve further, so that we can deliver more gold rated, we can say the perfect projects later on. We talked about in our previous episodes about carbon footprinting, so how we can reduce it and how it is making changes. And this firecracker thing just blew my mind. It is very wonderful, and I hope you will be able to invent something new. So in project-based learning, students see how their work has an impact in the real world. In projects, we are just presenting the information. And if we talk about Bloom's taxonomy, everybody, because all of the educators are there. So project-based learning takes you to the higher order thinking slabs, the top three most top level three elements in the Bloom's taxonomy. So the last one is the creation, where you're creating the solutions. And if we talk about the projects, so we are on the, maybe I can say the lower three. Application part still is very limited in the projects. So it is about knowledge gaining and knowledge acquiring. So so I think, first of all, if we are doing a project, it is an add-on to traditional instruction at the end of the unit. But as a project-based learning, the main course, it is instruction integrated into project, or the project is in the unit. In desert, students follow the teacher's directions. But in project-based learning, it is driven by student inquiry. Ranjita ma'am told us about inquiry-based learning and project-based learning. So it is student has its own curiosity to solve the problem, to know the problem, why it is happening, how I can solve it. So it is more student-driven rather to teacher-driven. So the in projects, the main focus is on the product, like charts. Chart is a product, but in project-based learning, it is more process-based. We product and process both, we can say. So the process is also assessed. How you have achieved this, what was your collaboration, how you have addressed a problem from the various angles. So it is about product and process. And it is, if we talk about these projects, these are unrelated to standards and skills. We talked about the STEM standards and skills on our previous episodes. But in project-based learning, you can set the standards. And later in the thing, we will talk about UBD, understanding by design. So design is more important in project-based learning, but in projects, we can say product is displayed in the classroom. So this is the main difference between project and project-based learning. So teachers should be very much clear about it. It is not about that if you're giving a chart or a presentation to make, then it is project-based learning. So these elements which Anubha ma'am has told us, these are very important to understand, to make successful gold-rated projects for project-based learning.
Thank you, Nisha ma'am. Yeah, actually, this entire STEM, this concept that was given by Nisha ma'am, and from the very first, she has given a lot of effort to make this STEM a successful event by creating 10 episodes and putting all her best efforts in creating questions in for all episodes. Thank you so much, Nisha ma'am, for your efforts. Next question is to Anubha ma'am. In our last episodes, we discussed about inquiry-based learning. How does it differ from other forms of inquiry-based and experiential learning? Anubha ma'am, for you.
Thank you, Sushilji. Taking forward from what Nisha ma'am has been sharing and what I have learned through the past episodes with Nisha ma'am and with many more fellow learners, we've been talking of STEM all through. And along with so many components of STEM, what we normally practice in class and what we have been saying as research-based project, inquiry-based project, experiential projects, we define questions here in inquiry-based project. We have a question, the question that are coming from real life problems. And here I would like to just highlight one point, that when we are defining questions for inquiry-based learning, as educators, we have to be very careful that we are taking questions which the child can relate to in their own immediate atmosphere. Sitting here in Delhi, if I ask a child to develop a question on Arctic or Antarctica, probably the correlation is going to be very superficial. So the experience of the problem becomes important here in defining the question of the inquiry-based learning. It should be relevant to the student. We define a question which is relevant to the student, and in the inquiry-based learning process, the children try to find out the answers to the question through discovery. So they will find out the question through various materials that they can source in their textbook, by going and asking their peer, their seniors, by researching it in the library or over the internet. Basically, the focus in inquiry-based method is the discovery aspect. Adding on to the inquiry-based experiential learning, it takes it a step forward. And in the experiential learning, the children are made to perform small set of experiments to validate what they are discovering or what they are testing. A very common example, if I take some of the questions that can help the children in inquiry-based learning, they will be basically the questions like, how can we protect our rivers from drying up? Because seasonal drying of rivers is becoming a very common problem in this side of the Indian subcontinent. What are the factors that make student a successful student in their life ahead. So these are all inquiry based questions. So the children will go, they will discover, and if we add a little experience to it, they will probably get to meet and interact with leaders or successful people from their relevant field and find out what are the methods there. It will stimulate curiosity. It will make the children connect with people around them, with resources around them. It will make the children develop on their skill areas wherever we have taken the question from. Project-based level of learning is a little, when we put an inquiry in the project, because project is also talking of real life problems. So if we take up a project, the target of the project is to have a tangible output coming on the table at the end of the project. Whereas in the inquiry-based question, you have researched and you have found out what is already there. And normally in PBL, we expect that the children come out with some innovation, some value addition to it. So when they are doing this, it is nurturing their creativity. It is also adding on to the design thinking capabilities of the children. And a project-based learning can never be a success if a child is individually working on it, because it is a long-term project. It involves multiple dimensions into it. So another very important aspect of project-based learning is that it infuses collaborative working in children. End of the day, the first premise will be problem solving. They had a problem and they worked on a problem. So I've moved in reverse direction, that over and above problem solving, they have to add on design thinking, they have to add on creativity, and they have to add on the collaborative aspects when they are doing an inquiry with project-based learning. There may be some simple solutions which are already existing, and we have so many examples from within India, which we say as Jugaad technology. Jugaad technology, I say, is a living legend to validate the project-based learning, something that is already existing. But I have added my innovation by taking things from the surrounding, which are low-cost things, which will add value to my problem. I cannot have a Jaguar. So possibly I had a Jaguar body from the dump yard and I innovated it. So this is something very simple. But this, when you add elements to it, that, okay, if you have taken a waste product and you have converted it to something usable, you have added to the reduced concept of the 3 R's of sustainable living. That was the first thing. Reduce, recycle. You've done both the things. You have reduced the waste and you have recycled the product into something useful. Another difference between inquiry-based learning and inquiry-based project-based learning is that in inquiry-based learning, since the questions are short-lived, the children also sometimes work in individual fashions and the answers are predefined. Because you get a question, you have to discover and you know what are the set of answers that are coming in. So it does not give much space to the innovation and the child's own expression there. Whereas when you take a project-based learning, so much of value addition is happening because the children are, they get a feeling of being their own boss. And they learn the essential life skills that if I am creating a prototype in the lab, until and unless I'm able to take this prototype to the marketplace or to my real life and use it practically, my prototype is of no use. This difference comes to the knowledge of students only through project-based learning. Their inquiry in both the areas have this finer distinction that no matter what findings I have done, the translation to application is the fundamental premise to having my discovery a success. So with this, I hope this answers the basic difference.
In fact, ma'am, you are in such a flow. thought that you are going to continue further. The expectation was something different. Thank you, ma'am. Next question is to Ranjana, ma'am. Ma'am, what is UBD in PBL and how it can be used by teachers?
As Nisha ma'am said in between that UBD is very, very important when we are talking about project-based learning. So, and moreover, we know that how project-based learning is an excellent teaching learning strategy to endorse true understanding of concepts, authentic learning, critical and creative learning. It is very important to implement PBL in an effective way, because if it is not implemented properly, step by step, or the real learning will not happen. So that is why many times it is seen that teachers have great ideas about PBL. They have good ideas, students have good idea, but they are not able to achieve the desired results because of poor execution and lack of structured planning here. Because any project, if if teachers are not executing it properly, implementing it properly in an effective way, the desired result which teacher wants to get out of this project will not come. So this is why I feel that UBD and PBL is a great combination, which completely, UBD completely enhance the learning of students if both are used properly and both are combined together. Now let us understand what is UBD. The full form of this is understanding by design. As the name itself is giving an idea, it is neither a teaching strategy and nor an approach, but it is a structured framework which is used for educational planning, and which was created by, because it is very, very specific technique which was created by J. McTaggart and Grant Wiggins. They were the educational researchers. They also called this framework as backward planning. If teachers wish to use PBL as a teaching learning strategy, UBD can be very, very helpful for the effective implementation of the same. Let us understand what is the meaning of backward planning. It says that teachers should start planning from the result or the performance or the learning outcomes, and then to plan curriculum and learning activities and the study material or the textbooks, or how the teacher is going to take it up further. To be more specific, it has 3 stages. The first stage is to identify the desired results or the learning outcomes. Teacher has to understand, teacher has to first think that what my students are going to understand or learn at the end of it. What will the students know and will be able to do as a result of this project, and how will they not only about the end result or about the learning outcomes. In fact, to plan the entire project, the teacher should know the type of classroom interactions happen generally in the classroom, how students learn, how will they interact or relate to each other or to the situation or to the project, how will they think, what kind of questions a teacher has to put in between so that children think accordingly, how will they think about the project and the learning, and most importantly, teacher has to first think that how will students apply and transfer their knowledge in the real world. So all these questions are to be put in mind before starting with the planning of the project, or before starting with, in fact, the process also. So this is the first stage. So these are the points which teacher has to ponder upon before starting. Then the second stage is to decide the adopted evidences or the methods of assessment. Once the once the learning outcomes are decided, then how to check, how to assess the learning, that is to be decided. How teacher will check or how teacher will assess the learning of the students, either formally or informally, because it is said that what can't be measured cannot be done. So how students will have the desired understanding of the concept, what will be its level, and teacher must think of, as I said, both formal and informal assessment. So that is to also to be decided in the second stage. Then the third stage is to plan the appropriate learning activities after pondering upon first and second stage the questions. So then accordingly, now I know what is to be achieved. Now I know what is the method of assessment. Now I know what my children are going to learn at the end of this project. Now I will plan my learning activities or strategies or teaching aids or the study material or instructions to achieve these learning outcomes. So this is the questions like how I am going to ensure the learning of my students and which methods are to be used, which strategies are to be used. So these are the three stages which helps in planning the project properly. Because if the project is not planned, it may come up as a failure. So that is how UBD helps teachers in planning the process of PBL properly in an effective way. Moreover, UBD also focuses on the deeper understanding of the concepts rather than just to get familiar with them. So it is not superficial learning, it helps to get deeper learning. As the name itself explains, understanding by design. So let us come back now to the main idea, that is project-based learning. So how it can help. So as I said, the planning framework UBD can be really used for effective implementation of PBL to get the desired result, to take the children through the process properly and to achieve the desired learning outcomes which teacher has planned. It will definitely help teachers to achieve what they have planned for through a systematic implementation of project-based learning. So UBD basically helps teachers to systematically plan the project-based learning. I think I answered.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Next question for Anuva, ma'am.
Just to
yes.
yes, I have shared a few resources for this universal understanding by design UBD on the chat, and there is a template also which can be used to design the projects and to understand it further. So the founders which ma'am just mentioned, I have shared the resource to their website. So all the design tools, they are free of cost to understand and use. And how you can implement it while doing project-based learning, it is already there. So the teachers in the audience, they can access these resources I've shared in the chat box.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your this great favor. Next question to Anuva, ma'am. Ma'am, how we can prepare educators for PBL?
This is the most pertinent question, I guess, with all my panelists will agree to. Just on a lighter note, I would like to share with everyone that project-based learning is something that the medical fraternity has been practicing for years. We cannot imagine having a doctor sitting between us, treating us, who has studied only from textbook and have never worked on first a prototype of the body, that is a preserved body, and later a live body. And then as we started expanding, we realized that somewhere our education system is having a gap between the employability or the job readiness of the student vis-a-vis their knowledge base. And that is where we started bringing down these skills to school level. And bingo, we are talking today of project-based learning. Our teachers are still glued on to, again, I'm going in the reverse direction, making a question paper at the end of a term, assessing the student knowledge on the basis of answers given by the student. So if we have to introduce project-based learning, the first thing that we have to do is break the mindset of assessment, because that term-based assessment, exam-based assessment is just a fraction of assessment that can tell us what is the student's potential. The minute we are out of this mindset that an examination is not the assessment method to test and to let the children know their real competencies, half the battle is won. The second thing is how to prepare the teachers. So the preparing is a long process of handholding, which begins right from planning of the lesson to the execution stages and then working on the rubrics of assessment. When we are planning the lesson plan, be it PBL lesson plan or any lesson plan, a prerequisite to making of a lesson plan is aligning the lesson plan to the learning outcome of the subject content, aligning it with the state or the country's standards that are essential in the process of education, and also infusing the life skills, which include the soft skills, which also include the value quotients, which also include the global aspects. So you cannot have a project planned without amalgamating all these things. Once you sit with this entire set of bouquet, you will then be putting in your questions. And I'll again be taking it with an example, because an example makes it easier for me to explain and probably easier for many to understand. Picking from the same example, let us say I'm talking of air pollution as the project that I've taken, that how can we as a student community contribute to reduction of air pollution and improve the AQI quotient of Delhi. Now in this question, when I am putting sub questions to it, or let us say I add hint questions, children, would you like to divide yourself? Would you like to study what was the AQI factor in over the past 10 decades in Delhi? Can you get figures for that? Can we find out what are the contributing factors that have been identified in various resources that have added to AQI? Can you find any correlation between the respiratory diseases and the escalation in AQI values? So the minute you start correlating it, you will immediately see that the AQI value is impacting each one of us. So the problem that I'm studying is pertinent not for the examination, but for my life, for the health of my family members and my future generations. When I'm trying to work on AQI, and suppose I'm bringing in a prototype, the very important question here is a product that I'm defining, and if I add cost to it, because ultimately a product has to be marketable. If I add cost to it, can I be the sole beneficiary of my product? Or is it percolating down to many individuals and the society who has contributed to it? So can the student to my project understand that an individual cannot succeed till the society also develops along with it? Because I cannot have an AQI bubble around me without my entire city becoming a better city in terms of air quality. So I come back to the fact that how much am I aligning the national values, the state values, the institutional values in the subject content that I'm studying, and how much am I making the student get core aligned to the concept that I want them to understand. So this is the first fundamental in defining the questions and the sub-questions. And when we sit together and as a teacher, when we work on this, the community that is working on these core questions will not be thinking in terms of assessing the students, but their own goals will rise from simply teaching and testing to contributing and making a difference to the society. Second thing is, beyond making a question, how am I translating in the class? What is the methodology? How much freedom can be given to the children? How many resources can be provided? And where all can I take the children, and how much industry interface can I provide them to make them actually understand the standard problems? They saw a beautiful experiment, one single air balloon going up in the sky, bursting, producing water in the air and creating a pop sound without any pollution. But imagine on Diwali, X many number of people in Delhi bursting Y many numbers of balloons. How many balloon debris are we going to have next day morning? So where is the practical application going? Are we putting in those factors? That will be another very important factor. We need to give the freedom to the educators from the examination pattern and decide on their rubrics to see how much the extract is coming out of it. We need to see that with these kind of exposure, how much confidence is coming in our children to stand in front of an audience and just discuss around the concepts that they are working on. And have I structured a method to grade the students there and give them the marks for the competency that they have developed, over and above the marks that they are writing in the examination? If he is unable to write in the exam, but he comes up with a very beautiful idea, do I have the provision to grace him a promotion and actually appraise him for what he has developed? So once I start doing it with my teachers and we start empowering the teachers to take such decisions, that will bring in a difference. And then we have done the lesson plan aspect. Then we have done the delegation of the lesson plan, the project that we have planned, the resources that we can provide. And then how much are we training the teachers to understand, appreciate, and start using the STEM and the project-based learning methods? I'll take example from my recent implementation that I have done. We introduced 3 labs simultaneously in previous session: a space lab in the school, a robotics lab in the school, and a coding lab in the school. With these 3 labs, I had to cut down from the timetable periods and integrate at least 1 period in each class, starting from class 1 to the highest class. Every class once a week goes to all these 3 labs. That means every class is having -3 periods in their timetable from their subject periods. So what we had done, we took time, and it was actually very time taking. We sat down and we class-wise, we mapped down that when class 1 is going to this lab, in the first week, which subject, which chapter will be correlated here. So in the first week, the extra period is taken from science. In the second week, the extra period is taken from English. In the third week, the extra period is taken from maths. And we have reduced the number of periods which were allocated to the core subject, and we have given a lot more periods to the practical learning in the labs. So now the children know that when I'm sitting there and I'm developing a game based on mathematics, I'm improving on my numeric skills and I'm getting graded for mathematics. I'm not getting graded for coding here. So these kind of innovations are required. Teacher empowerment is required. Flexibility is required to make the teachers competent in bringing in lots of PBL methods in the classroom. And with this, I would like to close. Otherwise, I'll keep on adding to many more examples. Thank you.
It was so interesting to listen. It's such a wonderful idea, and it's a more important implementation. Ideas are everywhere, but it's implementation in a practical way. That is very important. And ma'am, you are implementing those things. Your students are really lucky that they are having approach to all these things. in practical labs. It's really great. Next question to Ranjana ma'am. How to novice teacher who is new to PBL can start with PBL?
Can you hear me?
I think ma'am just answered the
Yes.
question.
Yes. I think you are asking that how a teacher can introduce PBL if teacher is new to PBL, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. See, what I feel is a good teacher for years together. In fact, I have seen that good teachers, they are using PBL in the classrooms. They might not be knowing exactly what are they using or the technical name for it. But yes, many teachers, they have been using PBL in the classrooms, first thing. Now, if teacher is new to PBL, definitely, as just now Anubha ma'am said, that we need to bring teacher on board, how to implement PBL, what exactly is PBL. This is very, very important to make the teacher understand. For that, a lot of training sessions are required. A kind of, the entire ecosystem, I feel, of the school should be like that, which is working, which is using this kind of approach. Because if you really want teachers to understand PBL, or if we want it to be embedded into the teaching learning process, then lot of training sessions and discussions and lot of hand holding is required for that particular teacher, those who are not aware of PBL or those who want to introduce it in the school. Lot of research material is available. Lot of research has happened on PBL which can be referred, and there are many other ways to handhold these teachers. Like, for example, in my school, we follow a practice that is called WOW classes. It is about class, but it can be related to the project as well. It is worth a watch. That means if any teacher feels that I'm doing something innovative, I'm using a new strategy in the classroom, which other teachers can also watch and they can observe, they can learn from it. They invite other teachers in the classroom, and this is how the other teachers also get an idea that what this teacher is using. So same way, a lot of interaction among teachers, those who are already using PBL, those who are already implementing it, can handhold the teachers, those who are new to it. So definitely, first thing is to change the mindset. That's very, very important, because if a teacher is still thinking in the traditional method of using traditional method of teaching, then first thing is to change the mindset. Because many teachers, they feel that I have experience of 25 years, 20 years, why to change from it? And they still prefer using the traditional based teaching learning processes. So that is not the time now. The time has changed. First, they have to understand. So first step is to change the mindset. Second is again to understand the process well, for which training can be helpful. And of course, as I said, the entire ecosystem of the school, of the teachers, should be in such a way where PBL or project-based learning is recommended and is supported by everybody. So these are few ways a teacher can definitely use. And teacher has to be of progressive mindset. That's the first point which is required here.
Changing mindset, that is very much important for the teachers. Next,
Just add on to this, that I think that mindset starts from the leader of the school. Like I can see both the leaders right here only, that how they are implementing these things. And it is not possible if the leader has that mindset. So the whole ecosystem starts with that change which a leader brings in that school. So I think that is the starting point.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. next question to you. Where do project ideas come from? Do teachers need different project ideas each time offer the to offer the course?
As we talked about so many projects, 2-3 projects, I think we have already shared with each other. So I think the project ideas can come from teachers itself. Students can also suggest some of the ideas. Like when we give the choice of voice in the classroom, when they come up with the big questions, not every question is acceptable, maybe for the project, but let the students talk to you. Let the students come up with the questions. Those questions can make big projects. Those questions can come up with the goal rated projects, I think. And there are some community organizations, government, private sector, like we have this ATL Facebook page is there. I have liked that Facebook page. So many a times, so many problems they are posing, and we can, as a project, we can design those projects and implement it in our class. And again, Anuva ma'am told us about the correlation part. So correlation is very much important, that it should correlate with your curriculum, with your syllabus, what you're teaching in the classroom. So those projects can come from teachers, students, and these third parties, I can say. And few suggestions can be that teachers can look for projects that are at an appropriate level of challenge, and to the extent possible are likely to be compelling or relevant to the students. Relevance is important. Many times we forget that if we are doing some project like Antarctica, ma'am just gave an example for the Antarctica. So that is also a very important thing to consider, that relevance should be there. We are sitting in Delhi and we are talking about there, we cannot practically go there and observe things. So that relevance should be there. Then if possible, giving students some choice, which I just talked about which project to tackle, increases the likelihood that they will become engaged and feel some ownership. Ownership in the project is most important. It is not like that the teacher is always instructing that you have not submitted this, that a student should be self-motivated, that I have to finish it, I have to complete it, and I have to inquire about it. That curiosity should be there. So it is always, I think, preferable that those ideas, those project ideas, should have consent of the students also. The voice and choice should be there. Then with suitable guidelines, students can choose projects, topics for themselves. As I told you, voice and choice. In that case, it's probably best for the teachers to approve topics for suitability. Like few topics which we cannot consider, like in science only. If we are doing this experiment of hydrogen balloons, so that suitability should be there. Okay, the environmental causes are there, or now we have SDG goals in front of us. So many projects can be planned, aligning our projects with the sustainable development goals. So I think engaging projects and which are inside and outside of the classroom, both the components has to be taken in mind. Both the components are equally important to consider there, that how much time a student has to spend outside of the classroom. It is, if it is accessible or it is out of the way, they have to go, then a teacher should be helping hand there. So community organizations can help in that. I think these with these guidelines, teachers can come up with projects every time they are offering a new course, new topic, or a new chapter. And it is not compulsory that with every chapter you have to do PBL. It is not compulsory. Maybe one project in a year, it is sufficient. But it needs a planning. So the planning should be done ahead of time, like when you are planning your curriculum, your syllabus, then you decide what kind of project can suit to the needs of the students and the needs of the syllabus, and it has the elements of interdisciplinary approach, so that the all subjects are covered and the STEM or the coding part can be implemented. And as Anubha ma'am told us about that if it is putting some value, if it is adding some value to the humans, so that human based approach in designing those projects, it is very much important.
Thank you, ma'am. And the last question is to Ranjana ma'am. How can teachers make sure that students learn content while using Pbl?
Yes, it's a good question, because many a times it is seen that teachers and students are so engaged in the procedure, in the technicalities, that they forget about the content or the concept finally which they have to learn about. So again, it is the responsibility of teacher, because she is the one who is of course the projects are student led, the initiatives and the questions are raised by students, research should be done by students, but then in which direction students are to be taken, that is the responsibility of a teacher. So a good planning can help the teacher to make sure that yes, concept understanding also happens accordingly. As I said earlier also, that project based learning should not be a parallel a parallel kind of activity which is happening along with our teaching. It has to be embedded in the curriculum, in the teaching learning process. Teacher has to plan her lesson or his lesson using PBL approach. So if teacher has that concept in mind, and if teacher knows the learning outcomes, as I said, using UBD also, if the teacher is very clear about the learning concepts, learning outcomes in mind, that yes, at the end of the project, this is my aim, this is the concept which children should understand at the end of the project, then I think teacher and students can be on the track throughout the process. They will not get diverted, and they will not get overwhelmed and get distracted by anything else. So I feel good planning and learning outcomes in mind, that should always be there, and teacher has to really plan the projects very well, should have a control on the process at least, that okay, children should not get diverted towards anything else, to something else, and they should be on the track. And I feel then of course the concepts can be learned in a better way.
Thank you so much, ma'am, to all of you for giving such a broader knowledge over this topic. There are so many people are present here. Whether they want to share their thought, or if they want to ask any of the query or question, they may ask. Any of the attendee, if they want to share something, or they want to ask something, any about any of the topic related to this one, they can ask. No query? Thank you so much to all of the attendees also to be here, to be a part of our this panel discussion, for giving their valuable time, and hopefully they might have learned a lot of things. And this is end of the session for today. And in next session, means in STEM part 7, we are going to cover what is inquiry based learning in a STEM classroom and how to implement it. The next session will be on this topic. Thank you, Ranjana.
Yeah, Sushilji, one more thing.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, if the participants need some training on project-based learning, because you have just, had one new feather in your cap by giving one more echelon to your great mentors, that you are starting the training vertical also. So if anybody needs the training on project-based learning, so detailed modules are available with us, and we can do this training. And I don't know about the financial part. That is up to you only, but that can be done anytime.
Thank you so much, ma'am. You are always waiting for that. And thank a lot.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sushil, and
Thank you, ma'am.
other panelists. It was wonderful talking to you all.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you
to
very
the
much.
wonderful
And
hosts,
listening,
ma'am,
listening
Ranjana
those
ma'am. Lovely
experiences
journey
of,
with you all.
the experiments done by you, Anubha ma'am, are really wonderful. A lot of
I'll-
learning happened. Thank you so much.
I'll just share the name of the scientist. His videos are which Dr. Samrat Ghosh. He's from IISER, Mohali. So I hope these resources will help everyone, because these are open resources that should be available to all. Thank you so much.
So should we close here?
Yes, yes. Thank
Till
you
we
very
meet again. Good night.
Thank
much,
thank
everyone.
you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, everybody.